First, the USDA's Justice for All non-discriminatory statement, which simply states that all persons must be treated equally without regard to their race, color, national origin, sex, religious creed, disability, age, political beliefs, or reprisal or retaliation for prior civil rights activity, and that our institution provides an inclusive space for all. For more information on the And Justice for All statement, please visit the USDA's website.
Hi everyone, my name is Brian from FCHS, Rutgers Cooperative Extension of Gloucester County, here with a quick lesson today on how to read a recipe properly. Alright, so why is it important to learn to read a recipe correctly? So if you don't read a recipe correctly, you might miss some important details of the recipe, which in turn, you may end up creating something new, which could be good, or something different that maybe isn't so good. And then you might end up having to throw away the food if it doesn't really work out how you like, or if it doesn't taste too good. So you do want to make sure that you read your recipe correctly. All right, so to start out with, you want to make sure you read the recipe very well before you start making anything. So ahead of time, you want to make sure that you have all the items that you need and that you have enough time to prepare your recipe. If a recipe says it's going to take 2 hours and you only have 30 minutes, you know that you're not going to be able to make that recipe for that night. You also want to look for any terms that you might not be familiar with. So you want to know the difference between chopping something, dicing something, or julienne cutting something. So make sure that you become familiar with all the different terms of the recipe. Now, when a recipe has an ingredient that is optional, you don't have to use it, so no problem if you don't have that ingredient on hand. And then if necessary, you might need to preheat your oven ahead of time while you prepare the rest of the ingredients. All right, so as far as preparing the ingredients for the recipe, if a recipe does call for chopped vegetables, you can do the chopping, before you start cooking anything. You also want to check if certain ingredients, they might need to be at different temperatures. So it might need to be at room temperature, something might need to be melted, and then something might need to be chilled before you start making your recipe. And then always know there are ways to substitute certain ingredients. So if you don't have something and you're not able to make it to the store, you can always check and look up some different ingredients that you can substitute in your recipe. All right, so when you're measuring things out for your recipe, you do want to measure carefully, and then knowing abbreviations really helps. So know that C means cup, capital T or TBSP means tablespoon, and then lowercase t or TSP means teaspoon. So those are really, especially the tablespoon and teaspoon is really important to know. And it also helps to know some shortcuts. So if you know that 4 tablespoons is the equivalent of a 1/4 cup, that saves you a little bit of time. And then 3 teaspoons is the equivalent of 1 tablespoon. So just a couple little things you can do to save yourself some time when measuring out your ingredients. And just some final tips for everybody. Always make sure to pay attention to the order of the steps of the recipe. They are in that order for a reason, and you do want to follow those carefully to make sure the recipe comes out correctly. Also, make sure to note any changes that you make to the recipe along the way. You might make some changes and the recipe comes out really good, so you want to know that for next time. And then you might make some changes in the recipe, maybe it doesn't come out too great, so at least you'll know that for next time as well, and maybe you won't make those changes again. And finally, make sure to have fun. Trying out new recipes is really exciting. But that is it for our class today, so thank you all for tuning in, and we'll see everybody next time.